Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sunday Spotlight. Each Sunday we will be covering a case in more detail. We'll be sticking to mostly Aussie crimes, but I might mix it up sometimes and add some international ones as well. Now, I did mention this Sunday that we were doing Karen Rostevsky, but I discovered that there will be a case update 4 days after the video goes live, so I want to wait until next Sunday to give you more information. Tonight, on our first Sunday Spotlight, we're going to cover a case that we talked about on Friday night in the Lineup Live. It's Keli Lane. This case is an interesting one, and there will be case updates that I'll bring you when they happen. But let's look at the story so far. The case of Keli Lane and her newborn daughter Tegan Lane made national headlines here in Australia. She was at one point the most hated mother in Australia when it was alleged that she murdered her 2-day-old baby. The question is, why? Why would she kill her child? Why would she lie so much? Why does having previous pregnancy terminations make you a baby killer in the eyes of the media? Why would police not hand over information to the defence? Why would the judge of this case retire from criminal law after the Keli Lane trial? And why now, after all these years, are the public finally learning facts that were hidden from the prosecution and defence? Keli Lane was born on March 21st, 1975, to parents Robert and Sandra Lane in Manly, New South Wales, Australia. Manly is a beach area that's quite cliquey. It's also known for an area of keeping secrets at all costs. This is how Keli grew up, with an exterior perfect life, but a family who didn't effectively communicate. It seemed like they lived by the don't ask, don't tell mentality. Her father was a former police officer, and her mother helped with her water polo teams. From all accounts, it seemed like her parents were focused a lot on Keli's athletic success. It is reported that both Robert and Sandra are rather tough parents, with Sandra being rather strict. Keli was a decent water polo player. Her family was a sporty one, and Keli was always in and out of the house in tracksuits, going to and from training. This is key to remember for the future. In 1992, when Keli was 17, she was in a serious relationship with Aaron Tyack. She tells Aaron that she is pregnant. Given the situation, Keli feels she has no other option but to terminate her pregnancy. She doesn't want to, but she knows she's in no state to take care of a child. In 1994, at the age of 18, Keli once again falls pregnant. At this time, her relationship with Aaron is ending, so she didn't tell him. Instead, she has a late-term termination. Lane said she was never offered counselling after this, and she believes it would have really helped her with the following years of her life. A year later, in 1995, Keli, now aged 19, falls pregnant for the third time. After the experience she had with her late-term abortion, she decides to give this baby up for adoption. At 9 months pregnant, Keli actually plays a water polo final. That's brutal. Days before her 20th birthday, she would give birth to a little girl. Keli actually leaves the hospital on day release to celebrate her 20th birthday, and then she comes back to the hospital afterwards to her child. When her mum was interviewed and told about her leaving the hospital for her birthday, her mum thought that she was strong for being able to do that. That wouldn't be my first choice of words. I don't know about you guys, but it makes me heartbroken that a 20-year-old had to hide and pretend. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about her mum's reaction? Keli lied to the hospital, saying she lived in Perth but was currently in Sydney. She gave them a false story and false information so they couldn't track her down afterwards. Keli had no care by a physician during or after any of her pregnancies. She was obviously trying her best to keep her pregnancies a secret. Can you imagine that? Now you're probably wondering, everyone knew she was pregnant, right? Apparently no. Both her parents deny ever having knowledge of any of her pregnancies. They claim she never wore any tight-fitting clothes as it wasn't the fashion, and she was constantly in tracksuits. It's a little different when it comes to her friends though. During all this time, Keli is playing water polo, which means Keli is wearing a swimming costume. Many of her friends and teammates noticed she was using a towel to wrap around herself when she was out of the pool, and underwater they could tell she was pregnant. But no one spoke to Keli about it, ever. They didn't even ask if she was okay. The coaches and adults surrounding the water polo team claimed that they weren't even aware of the rumours or of Keli looking pregnant, even during that final when she was so heavily pregnant. How could they have not known? I guess once again it's the don't ask, don't tell mentality. In 1996, Keli Lane turns 21 and has her fourth pregnancy and second live child. She's in a relationship with a man named Duncan Gillies. Duncan, a professional rugby player, is completely unaware that Keli is pregnant. On September 12th, she has a little girl named Tegan Lane. According to Keli, when she is discharged from the hospital at 2 p.m, this detail is important, she handed Tegan over to Andrew Norris, the natural father, his girlfriend Mel, and her mother. Keli's fifth pregnancy and live third birth in 1999 was a little baby boy. Keli had found a family to adopt this child, but when Keli left the hospital, she hadn't given the correct information, as she had a habit of doing. This meant the adoption couldn't be carried through, and DOCS, the Department of Children's Services, had to step in and find a foster family in the interim. DOCS caseworker John Borovnik was given the case to try and find Keli to sort the situation out. Borovnik does some simple investigating and calls the hospital. They ask if he is referring to her 1996 child. This is when he learns about Tegan. It is discovered that Tegan Lane hasn't been registered and there's no records of her apart from those hospital records. He attempts to talk to Keli, but she won't admit to having any other children except for the baby boy. At this point, he believes Tegan is dead. To me, that's a huge stretch so early on, and maybe it's why this investigation happened the way that it did. Borovnik reported this all to Manly Police Station. At first, Manly Police didn't do anything about it. It is believed by some that this is because Robert Lane was a retired police officer and knew the station well. However, that is strongly denied. In 2000, at the age of 25, Keli discovers that she is once again pregnant. This time she decides to keep the child, and she tells everyone that it is her first pregnancy. This is her sixth pregnancy and her fourth live child. She's in a relationship with the child's father, and they get engaged. Keli has a little baby girl. On February 14th, 2001, Keli Lane is asked to come to the Manly Police Station to talk to Detective Matthew Kehoe in regards to the whereabouts of Tegan Lane. Keli tells the detective that Tegan is with Andrew Morris, the child's natural father, but she doesn't know where he currently is. For 2 years, nothing really happens. Then on the 9th of May 2003, Keli is interviewed once again, but by a different detective, Detective Gort. It's in this interview that things seem a little off. She states that the child's father's name is Andrew Norris, not Morris. Keli tells Gort that she had had an affair with Andrew over the course of several months. They ask where Andrew lives, and Keli shows them where she thinks he used to live. Andrew was no longer there. Keli tells police that she was in contact with Andrew until 1997 via her mobile phone. Detective Gort asks flat out if she killed Tegan, and Keli reacts really strongly to this. Gort tells her that the case is being passed over to the Homicide Squad. At the end of the interview, Detective Gort asks Keli if there's anything she wants to tell them. There was a 4-minute silence before she just said no. At the end of 2003, Gort taps Keli's phone in the hopes to hear her discuss Tegan on a phone call, but she never does. In January 2004, Detective Gort tells Lane that this case is now going before the coroner. Lane then has to tell her parents the situation. They had no idea she had been pregnant previously. Detective Gort tries a new tactic and asks Keli if she would like some counselling to discuss what's going on. Gort's aim was to have Keli confess to her counsellor, and then Gort would subpoena the records and use those to charge her with murder. But that never happens. The Caronia Inquest begins in June 2005 and lasts until February 2006. During the inquest, the coroner suppresses media so they can't report on the case. He also gives Keli a pretty extraordinary deal: immunity to take the stand and to tell the truth about what happened to Tegan. On the 13th of February 2006, Keli is called to speak. Keli declines to do this, and in fact, when she takes the stand, she exercises her right to not answer questions. That wasn't actually her decision. Her legal team told her not to talk. The coroner lifts the media ban and requests a full inquest into the disappearance of Tegan Lane. At the end of the inquest, Coroner Abernathy states, "I am comfortably satisfied that Tegan Lane is in fact deceased." He was concerned that baby Tegan had met with foul play, although he stated that there still exists a possibility that she was alive somewhere. Due to his finding, the case was referred to the New South Wales Homicide Squad. All hell breaks loose. The intensity of the media cannot be understated. Keli is painted as a baby killer, despite there being no body or evidence to prove that Tegan was actually dead. My personal opinion is that having 2 pregnancy terminations and then adopting out your other children does not mean you killed one of your children. However, the media didn't see it that way. In August 2006, the New South Wales Police begin reinvestigating this case. Police at this time are still trying to find Andrew Norris, as well as looking for a child named Tegan who was born on the 12th of September 1996. I'm sceptical of how detailed the search was because the police didn't bother to obtain the mobile phone records of Keli Lane, which would have shown her calls to Andrew. Once again, they tap Keli's phones as well as her parents. They excavate Duncan Gillies' backyard. That was one of her ex-boyfriends, believing that Keli buried Tegan on that property. Other properties are investigated and dug up, but no evidence is found anywhere. By November 2008, the Unsolved Homicide Squad are still investigating. They sent their information to the Director of Public Prosecution to inquire if they had enough to charge Keli Lane. In November 2009, the DPP charges Keli Lane with the murder of Tegan Lane. This is 13 years after Tegan was born. Keli is charged with murder, but also with 3 counts of perjury. The prosecutor, Mark Tedeschi, knew that the case was very circumstantial, so he added the perjury counts in order to discuss Keli's previous abortions and adoptions. Anthony Wheely, the judge on this case, hinted at the defence to apply to separate the perjury counts from the murder charge, but they didn't do it. In 2010, the trial begins. As I said, the case is so circumstantial and there is no motive or body. Prosecutor Tedeschi shares the theory that he believes Keli killed and dumped Tegan's body at Homebush Park, even though there was no evidence whatsoever. Later it is revealed that the doc's caseworker, John Borovnik, had mentioned that theory to him a week prior. When the judge heard this theory, he wanted the jury excused and to start again. However, Keli Lane said she wanted to just get this over with. I'm sure now she really regrets that. Let's talk about that time discrepancy. There is a discrepancy between what time Keli was discharged from the hospital after having Tegan. The original report states that Keli was discharged at 2 p.m. However, years later, the nurse in charge states that the report was wrong and Keli was discharged between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. According to the prosecution, on the day she was discharged from the hospital, she killed her baby, then went to her friend's wedding. If she was discharged between 11 and 12, she would have had that time, but if she was discharged at 2, it wouldn't have given her enough time to kill Tegan, then make it to the wedding. Basically, it worked out real well for the prosecution that the nurse changed the time. The media sure had worked out the motive for the murder. They tried to paint the picture that Keli was so desperate to go to the 2000 Sydney Olympics for water polo that the baby wasn't going to work for her, so she killed her. The trial lasted for 6 months, and in that time, the police were still gathering their evidence, taking witness statements, etc., desperately trying to find out some sort of evidence. During the trial, Lane doesn't take the stand and no witnesses are called by the defence. The jury deliberates for 8 days and cannot reach a unanimous decision, so it was decided they would go with a majority vote. So the jury comes back with the guilty verdict, stunning everyone. When the verdict is read, Keli collapses, and her mum then collapses as well. Keli was so unprepared for this that she had told her daughter she was picking her up from school. Instead, she was handcuffed and taken into custody. In April 2011, Keli Lane is sentenced to 18 years and will be eligible for parole in 2023. In January of this year, 2019, the Department of Justice is considering reviewing the trial and conviction following a petition that was created for Keli. The RMIT Innocence Initiative is now working on this case. In the last week, new information about this case has come to light. The ABC released a documentary series in October of 2018 called Exposed, the Case of Keli Lane. In doing their very detailed research, they have discovered that there was over 2,000 tapes withheld from the prosecution and the defence. This breaches the duty of disclosure that the police have, and Judge Wheely, since learning of this, has stated that this is a significant withholding. Police selected which evidence to share, but it is now known that of the 104 tapes they had, they only gave it over 8. That's 92% of evidence withheld. Of the 1,920 phone taps, only a mere 84 was given. That's 96% withheld. The police have stated that they complied with their duty of disclosure, but refused to release the other tapes and taps. Judge Wheely says this requires an investigation and Keli Lane was possibly not given a fair trial. I want to add that the ABC followed up with the building that Keli Lane said that Andrew Norris lived at and found a man that 100% believes he used to see Keli leave the apartment building late at night. No one has been able to confirm if Andrew lived in the building, as there's no building records available. I strongly recommend that you go and watch the amazing ABC documentary. I'll leave the link below. So what do you think about this case? Personally, I believe 100% she wasn't given a fair trial and that the police deliberately misled both the prosecution and the defence. As to if she's guilty of murdering Tegan, I don't think she killed her. I think she did in fact give Tegan to someone, but what happened after that, who knows? Could Tegan be out there with a different name and no idea who she really is? Let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below what case you'd like me to cover next time on the Sunday Spotlight. Bye for now.